So, let's talk about the grand sweep of human history, not as a boring list of dates and names, but as a story. A story that, when you look closely, seems to have a surprisingly consistent rhythm, a repeating pattern.
All right, let's just dive right in with the big question. What is it that causes entire civilizations to rise, fall, and then get replaced by something totally new? Is it all just random, a chaotic series of events? Or is there a hidden rhythm to it all?
To even begin to tackle a question that big, we're going to need a map. And this is it. This timeline breaks down all of recorded history into 6 major ages. We're going to walk through each one from the very beginning of writing right up to our world today. But first things first, to really understand our map, we need to know exactly where it begins. What's the actual dividing line between what we call history and, well, everything that came before it? The line in the sand is surprisingly simple. It's writing. See, history, as a formal study, is all about written records. Everything before that, I'm talking about the Stone Age, the vast 200,000-year journey of our species, that's all considered prehistory. Our story starts the moment humanity first started writing its own story down.
So let's get into our first act. This covers the first 3 ages, and they're all defined by the revolutionary metals that literally forged them into being: bronze and later iron.
Okay, so this era was just incredible. You have humanity's first great civilizations popping up almost at the same time in places like Egypt, Sumer, and the Indus Valley. They're inventing game-changing technologies. I mean, the wheel, the plow, and building monuments like the Great Pyramids that still just boggle the mind today. This is the official starting line for history. But this first amazing chapter didn't just slowly fade out. No, it came to a screeching halt. It was ended by a massive climate event. About 4,200 years ago, the entire world was hit by a century of extreme drought, and these first great civilizations just crumbled. But, out of those ashes, new cultures began to flourish. Egypt came back strong, Sumer evolved into the great city of Babylon, and civilization started to spread to new places, like China and Minoan Crete. And it's during this time that a huge volcanic eruption is thought to have wiped out the Minoans, possibly giving birth to the legend of Atlantis. And then, bam, around 1200 BCE, history just hits a wall. In what is basically the blink of an eye, historically speaking, the major civilizations all around the Mediterranean, we're talking Greece, Anatolia, Egypt, they just vanished. It remains one of the greatest mysteries in all of history. Out of that total collapse, a new age began. This one defined by a tougher, more accessible metal, iron. But for places like Greece, this was a really rough transition. It's often called the Greek Dark Ages, for a simple reason. The historical record just goes completely silent. And here's where things get really fascinating. It's in this historical silence, this dark age, that many of our most foundational, most epic stories were born. Think about it. The tales in the Greek Iliad, the Hindu Mahabharata, the Jewish Torah, they all seem to come from this period when the lights, supposedly, went out. Okay, let's move on to an era of massive, sprawling empires and some of the most profound philosophical awakenings in human history. This was a time of incredible connection and new ideas, but it also, you guessed it, faced its own spectacular collapse. This period was a true golden age of ideas. Around 600 BCE, something absolutely incredible happened. Figures like Socrates in Greece, the Buddha in India, and Confucius in China all emerged, laying down the moral and philosophical foundations for billions. And the crazy part? It all happened around the same time, but completely independently. At the same time, the Silk Road was connecting the East and West like never before. But, like the ages before it, this interconnected world couldn't last forever. The big symbolic end to this classical period is the fall of the Western Roman Empire around 500 CE. It was an event that sent much of Europe into a long period of fragmentation and change. Now, this is a really, really important point. We often hear the term Dark Ages, but that is a totally Eurocentric view. Because while Europe was struggling, other parts of the world were absolutely thriving. The Middle East was entering its Islamic Golden Age, and powerful dynasties in China were overseeing some incredible breakthroughs in science and culture. And if you need any more proof that the Dark Ages weren't dark for everyone, just look at this guy. In West Africa, you had powerful empires rising, like the Mali Empire. Its ruler, Mansa Musa, is widely considered to be the single wealthiest human being in all of history, not a king from Europe, but an emperor from medieval Africa. So what could possibly end this era and bring about the next great turning point? Well, it was the deadliest pandemic in human history. The Black Death was so catastrophic, killing up to half the population in many cities, that it completely tore down the old medieval society, and, in doing so, helped spark the beginning of our modern world. And that brings us to our final chapter, the modern age. And this is where that hidden pattern we've been hinting at this whole time really comes into sharp focus. It's incredible to think about, but our modern world was literally born from the ashes of the Black Death. It kicked off with the Renaissance, a rebirth of classical ideas, which then fueled an age of exploration and colonization. This led straight into the scientific and industrial revolutions, which completely remade human life, setting the stage for the technological revolution that we're all living through right now. But when you step back and you look at this whole story from the Bronze Age to today, what's really the most important takeaway isn't just what happened in each age. It's the shocking similarities in how they all ended and how the next one began. There is a clear, repeating pattern. Time and time again, it's the same three forces, often working together, that trigger these massive shifts: a major climate event, followed by large-scale migrations of people, and often accompanied by devastating pandemics. This trio seems to be the engine of historical change. Which brings us right here to today, and to a very provocative final question. We are currently dealing with all three of these forces at a global scale: climate change, unprecedented mass migrations, and the recent shock of a global pandemic. So you have to ask, does history's repeating rhythm mean that we are living through the end of our own age and witnessing the dawn of a new one? Only time will tell.